Hello, this is Corey. Hey, before we get into today's episode, I want to share something with you. I've been very fortunate and blessed to see an uptick in my coaching business over these last few months, and it's because leaders need help. So if you're one of those leaders that has found yourself kind of in a rut, the working from home is difficult, your priorities have been changed, and even questioning your purpose and kind of what are you going after, you are not alone. I put together a webinar called The Power of Priorities and Purpose. You can find it at my website, CoreyMCarlson.com. And there will be a tab on the left. Is this for you? Click on that, watch the webinar. It's about 20 minutes long. You'll learn the 5 capitals framework, which will help you with prioritization. You'll also learn a process to put together and think through a vision for your life. And so I want you to check that out as a kind of a blessing and a go forward to see if it helps get you moving. And if you want further information, then we can talk about a coaching program. But you will find absolute value in this webinar. And so I encourage you to go check it out. Thank you very much, and on to today's episode. Welcome to the Win at Home First podcast. I'm your host, Corey Carlson. This podcast is where we talk about how successful business leaders win, not only at work, but also at home. On this podcast, we'll go behind the scenes with great leaders to hear stories of how they win. Thank you for listening, and on to today's episode. Hello, this is Corey. Today we talk with Mike Hopkins. You'll learn more about him in a minute, but he's executive of a huge company, plus has 5 kids. And we have a great conversation talking about the importance of prioritization and putting the right things in your calendar first. We talk about the intentionality that he had of raising his kids with Christ at the center and talking about identity ceremonies. We talk about the power of communication, both at work and at home. It's an awesome episode. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did the conversation. Thanks. Hello, this is Corey Carlson. You're listening to the Win at Home First podcast. Today I'm joined by Mike Hopkins. He's the COO of Paul Davis Restoration. They have over 320 franchises, but he's also winning at home as well, where he's got 5 kids, he's married, he's strong in his faith. And so a perfect guest to help us learn how to win at work and win at home while building a very successful career. So Mike, thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks. It's an honor to be on with you, Corey.
So what is that key trait that a leader needs to have in order to win at home and win at work?
I would just use the word grounded. For me, that means that, every day at the beginning, very early before the sun is up, I'm getting time and reading my Bible and getting some time in prayer and praying about my day and praying for the people that I'm going to be in the orbit with during that day. I think that's crucial for me. And that also helps us remain humble in our walk, right? Well, for me, it does. And so that being grounded piece is vital to kicking off every day. And that's a daily event.
Oh, that's good. For your reading scripture, do you do anything in particular that you find to be helpful? Are you doing devotions? Are you going through a particular book? What helps you?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It depends on the season. Sometimes I'll go through a book of the Bible, but a lot of times what I've been doing most recently that's been a lot of fun, particularly during this COVID season, is I've got a group of guys that we're doing Bible app plans together. And that's been it's been a really fun way to interact. Of course, it would be better to be sitting in person with one another around the table and having a cup of coffee and discussing what we've been reading. But that's also a fun way to do it, and also wonderful accountability to just stay on track with the reading plan that we're on. So I can vary back and forth on that. Usually my morning, though, is not deep study. That's typically a devotional time. And then when I do deep study, that's at separate times, a couple times a week.
Oh, you do some deep study like at evening or later in the day.
Mm-hmm. Or Saturday mornings is more common for me. I'll use a Saturday morning for a couple hours to dive into a book of the Bible. Most recently, I was working through 1 Peter. So, that's a little different than the devotional kickoff. But my morning time is usually an hour long or so, making sure that I'm square with the Lord and my feet are properly planted to move about my day. Yeah,
it's good. I, too, get up early in the morning and do a study. That's actually when I sometimes do my reading, like right now, going through the book of Acts. But what I've also love about those Bible app devos is like in the middle of the day, because they're so quick that you can just, 2:00, if I'm in a funk or I've kind of gone off track, I could go there, do a quick devo, quick verse. So man, those apps can have different benefits for sure, whether it's a deep dive or it's just a touch during the day to recalibrate.
Absolutely. I'm the same. Yeah, there's definitely opportunities in the shorter ones to be able to do that. Yeah.
I also like how you mentioned praying for people. So often we find our own prayers being selfish, where it's, hey, God, do this for me. Help my business today. Help me. And so when we change our perspective of praying for other people, how it just gives us life, gives us energy. So I think that's neat that you brought that up.
Yeah, it's an important part of my day. I've got a group of folks that I pray for regularly. And then, of course, whoever's on the calendar for that day, too.
Yeah, that's great. Anything God's talking to you about specifically right now?
It's interesting. In the midst of a pandemic, it's been a great year for us work-wise. But I would say that what has really been neat is to really consider Colossians 3:23. That if we're doing all of our work as if we're doing it unto Him, it occurs to me that if that means being faithful moment by moment, that's something that I've learned over the years, but has been brought to the surface again through this pandemic. Really considering the fact that each day, each moment, each opportunity that I have to interact with someone in my day or task that I'm working on is a unique opportunity to prove myself faithful doing the work as I'm doing it unto Him. And then the results are ultimately in His court. But if I've done everything that I can to be faithful there, that allows me to be patient with the process a little bit more.
Oh, I like that. There's a phrase I've been hearing a lot during COVID, especially as of late, but I control the inputs. God controls the impact.
That's great.
And to your point, where it is, hey, I've got to do my job. I can't just sit on the couch. So I'm going to continue to work hard, do what I've got to do to grow, the coaching business, to sell more books, to have people listen to podcasts. But at the end of the day, I can only control so much. And so God does control the impact. And some days I have peace in that. Other days I get frustrated that it's going at a certain pace versus another pace, So
sure.
I'm sure, how does that relate to you as you think about you control the inputs, God controls the impact, with even the speed of which Paul Davis has grown and the things that you've, helped with the fertile soil? How's that look on your end?
Yeah, on a spiritual level, it's absolutely, that's the fact, right? I mean, when we look at the end of our days, what do we want to hear Jesus say? Right? We want to hear, well done, my good and faithful servant, right? He's not going to say, great job, you did an awesome job that week generating, X amount of sales, or, getting the team to accomplish a certain profit goal or a brand experience goal, right? What he's going to say is, well done, my good and faithful servant. And that for me is the piece of it there. And on a very practical level with Paul Davis, particularly as this pandemic kicked off, no one knew what was going to happen. Right. So it was a matter there of, hey, how do we help our team be properly protected from it themselves, health wise, and also the paying attention very carefully to the physical health of their businesses. We did all the things that we could do, that we knew how, summoned all of our resources that we could to make sure the teams were physically healthy. And so protocols were put together, cleaning procedures built. How do people remind people on using PPE the proper way in their day? That's a lot of P's in one sentence. And also then making sure that they've got a plan in place to keep their business healthy and moving forward and not running into cash issues and things like that moving forward. And we've had great success with that. We don't have a single franchisee who has been put out of business over the pandemic. So we're really grateful for that.
Wow, that's awesome. That's very good. And so what was the cadence when you were working with all those franchisees? In the fact, was it almost all hands on deck? Let's talk once a week. Let's talk every other week. What was that cadence to keep everybody in tune?
Right. At Paul Davis, we have a really large support team. So it wouldn't just be me. In every market, we have someone called a regional business consultant, and these guys and gals are trained to support the franchisees operationally. Really, they shepherd shoulder to shoulder alongside them on making sure they hit their goals. So there's a lot of support that happened there daily, but it literally, that went to some offices. It was daily if there was an immediate need, but definitely moved to a weekly cadence. And we actually did a system-wide daily call on an update on what was happening with the pandemic as well, and things that they could do to update. And then did a weekly kind of crescendo, if you will, on a Friday, to update on here's where we are, here's where it appears to be heading, here's what you can do to ensure that your people are healthy and your business is healthy. In addition to that, we put together multiple teams of people who worked on different streams that needed to be repaired, even on how we actually do work in the field on a daily basis. We do restoration work. So basically we're an emergency room for a home or a building. So something bad happens, we come put it back together. Well, I would say nobody really wants to go there, right? But everybody wants good care when they arrive. And so there was a lot of things that had to pivot there to make sure that our people in the field, our key folks in the field are healthy. And then we're producing in a safe way that keeps customers safe too. So it literally was hour by hour, but daily cadence that Crescent gave opportunity for all owners to be involved. All of our team members were involved in their area of subject matter expertise. So it was definitely an all hands on deck. And now everyone's moving along pretty crisply at it. But I think the pandemic brought out some interesting things, because some folks were especially bored because they didn't have things to do. And then some people were wildly busy, and that was us. So because our teams do clean for COVID as well. So not only are we being careful and making sure businesses were properly geared up, but we were doing COVID cleaning also.
Yeah. So you had an uptick in your business because of it.
Well, number of jobs, yes, but they're much smaller than our normal work. So it still was a struggle for a little while there to help our franchisees get sales back up to where they need to be, even though they were very busy. Job size is much smaller on COVID cleaning than, cleaning up a house after a kitchen fire or a flood or a broken pipe, things like that.
Going back to the communication piece, I love how you guys at Paul Davis believe in that statement. There is no such thing as over communication, where you guys daily. I mean, that's incredible to have daily communications, where I will work with a lot of leaders now where they're almost too timid, too scared to bother people at home or to interact with them. And so just teaching people, coaching them to say, hey, we've got to communicate, because where there's a void of communication, people will fill it with gossip, negativity, doubt, wandering, all types of things. So it's neat that you guys were there able to fill that void.
That's so true. And it's a lot of work. It's tiring. And one of our philosophies is that basically communicate 10x. And so basically when you're tired of talking about something, means that's probably about when everyone around you is getting it. So keep going. Right? Especially on important things like this, right? I mean, literally people's lives are physically at stake with pandemics like this, and their businesses, which they have a lot invested in, are at stake as well. So we take that very seriously. If our franchisees aren't succeeding, then we're not succeeding as a brand.
Yep. That's neat. Mike, you've been with Paul Davis for a lot of your career, and in the process did that with a growing family, with 5 kids and a healthy marriage. How did you as a leader find yourself balancing the time of work and all the demands? And you traveled a lot, you had to help launch some of these sites, but then your intentionality when you were home. How were you able to manage that? And what would you help tell our listeners as they're building their careers, and some of them, different stages of how age the kids are?
Sure. Yeah, it's interesting because before I started with Paul Davis, my wife and I owned a company that had just over 100 employees. And so we learned early there how to really properly prioritize. And I would say this, and it flies in the face of what some people might talk about, but I actually don't believe in life balance. I believe in properly prioritized moments. And I think you and I have discussed that before. And what I mean by that basically is that, yes, at the end of a day or a week, we need to look at the whole and say, how do we do loving all the key important people in our lives? First, the Lord, then our wives and our kids, or spouses, I should say. It depends on who's listening.
Right.
And for me, that comes down to very much setting aside the time for most important things. So, for instance, on a small scale, looking into 2021, our family vacations are already on my calendar for 2021.
Awesome.
Right. Not necessarily where we are going yet, but the time is blocked out so that first things are first. The dates with my wife, matter of fact, I just realized into next year, they're not on there yet, but through this year, they're on my calendar, right? So that nothing gets in the way of that, because there are many, many things. Now, COVID has slowed some of that down. There's less dinner meetings and less travel and things like that. But even before that, I put the most important things on the calendar first. If there's a big event coming up with the kids, that's a big thing. So prioritizing what's most important first. And then I would also say, that going back to that piece of being grounded for the day, it's also a really focused effort during the day. To me, that's a part of that faithfulness that we talked about earlier. What am I doing with my day? If I have 10 minutes extra in my day, or a call finishes 10 minutes early, what am I doing with that time? I heard a friend of mine once told me that's called precrastination. And so that's a big part of it. So I'm very scheduled. My calendar is it's very scheduled out. I know exactly what I'm doing throughout my day, and therefore, when I know that those things are accomplished for the day as well, it's feel comfortable to set that phone down, put the email away, close the door to my office. And this COVID season, close the door to my office and head out there and be fully engaged with the family when I'm there. And that means no cell phones at the table. That means honestly, I don't check my phone in the evening, check emails in the evening. And if there's a text or a phone call that's urgent, I might pick that up, but certainly not during any big events. And I don't get very many of those calls during the day. So really, I think for me, it's about making a plan and making sure that when I make the plan, I schedule the most important people in my life first, and that's my family.
Yeah, that's good. People have asked me before, hey, how do you make it to all the games for your kids, and how do you do these? It's because it's in my calendar. I mean,
right.
Same thing like you is I put it in the calendar, and then let's say it's it's a Tuesday night. If someone says let's meet on Tuesday, I'm like, no, I can meet Wednesday. I can't meet Tuesday.
Yes,
and
exactly
where other people are doing it the other way around. So I think that's neat that you brought that up, and also phones as well, where part of a time management process I've been going through a lot lately, really in 2020, is just the dependency on the phone. I too am not checking my emails or social media anymore at night. And I tell you, the freedom that I had has been incredible, because you just think you've got to look, well, what's going to happen? And it's a control issue. We think we're much more important than we really are. We think that we are needed. Like someone's got to get a hold of, Mike for you, and obviously Corey for me. And it's just like, but it's not necessary. And so I'm now looking at my email late in the morning, allowing me to be more intentional in my quiet time, my writing and business development. And then I can get into the email. And it's been so freeing in that way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
What are you doing with that extra 10 minutes when a meeting gets over?
It's interesting. A lot of time what I do with that is I take that time to celebrate someone. I love seeing people win. That's one of the most important things in me in living and doing what I do. There's a ministry that I love called CBMC, and Christian Businessmen's Connection. There's also Christian Business Women's Connection as well. Their slogan, if you will, is meeting business people right where they are to help them become who God designed them to be. And that actually, for years, has been my position as well, but meeting people, right? So whoever that is. And I do believe, of course, in the business world, what gets measured gets done, but what gets celebrated gets accelerated. And so one surefire way to breathe life into someone is to catch them doing something good. And so a neat thing in my world is I have lots of people around me that help me with this, because, for instance, I may have a franchisee or a regional business consultant or one of our VPs or one of our other C-suite folks send me over, hey, here's a really neat story that happened in my business today. And I'll go, that's great. Make sure you send me their contact information. I'll just pick up the phone and call that person and say, hey, I heard you did a great job on the Smith project. They had this going on and that going on. They specifically mentioned you. I wanted to tell you thanks, because our folks that are in the field are the ones that really represent us well. And they're the ones that really are our brand. And so I love just taking an opportunity once, twice, 3 times a day. Typically it'll be, I would say 6 to a dozen, half a dozen to a dozen times a week, getting the opportunity to get particularly one of our field techs on the phone to say, great job.
Thank you very much for listening to today's episode. I hope you are enjoying it so far. Before we go back to the rest of this episode, I want to share with you my book, Win at Home First. Some of you have read it, so thank you very much. For others of you, you have not. And I encourage, if you're looking for a resource to help you with these times of your work is now in your home and your home is now in your work, and what this looks like, this book is being helpful to many leaders like you. Forbes magazine said it was one of 7 books everyone on your team should read. And the book is broken up into 4 different sections to help you. First is about you, understand who you are. The second is marriage, and ideas and tips to help with your marriage. Third is parenting. And then last is work. So these 4 different sections to help you recalibrate during this time and to help move forward. So if you are needing additional resources, I encourage you to check out my book, Win at Home First. It is available on Amazon as well as Audible. And so on to the rest of the episode. Thank you very much. When you and I talked previously, we had a great discussion talking about intentionality with kids, where we are bringing God into the family. We also talked about identity. And I'd like to just share some of that with the listeners, where, my daughter's now 16, but when she was 13, we did a neat identity ceremony where we took basically Proverbs 31. We felt God aligned us to that, and we've found 5 words that meant something to us. And we affirmed her in that. And it's a whole neat process. And I've written about it before, so you can see it listeners can see that in the book. But for you, you've done some neat identity ceremonies as well that I would love to hear about, as and listeners as well.
Yeah. We have a minute for a little bit of the backstory on that.
Yeah. Yes, we do.
Okay. So a friend of mine who I really respect, a Christian business guy, invited me to go hunting with his son. And we were kind of in between things. And I think we were walking back to the cabin to go grab lunch. And he said to me, "Hey, Mike, how are you intentionally raising your kids for the sake of Christ? What are you doing with it? How are you intentionally doing that?" And I gave him some kind of answer that he didn't buy. It was, I'm reading my Bible. We'll talk about scripture. We'll pray at dinner and do a few things like that, and doing church and talking about what they learned. And he said, "That's good. It doesn't sound all that intentional to me." And I thought, this is why I love talking with Christian business leaders, right? They'll challenge you in a way that business leaders uniquely are trained to do. And I said, "Tony, I appreciate that." I said, "What do you suggest?" And he suggested to me a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. So the makeup of our family is that we have 4 boys, biological kiddos, and we have the blessing of Mariama, who is we adopted 3 years ago. She's 13 from Sierra Leone, Africa. And then just a year ago, we added another daughter to our family because our oldest got married, and Mackenzie is wonderful. But with our boys, awesome. I needed some help with the intentionality of how to raise them up in a bit of a system. And so what I learned there is, we did what I would refer to from the book Raising a Modern Day Knight, called a page ceremony, and that was a weekend getaway with Dad, where we would do something special and go somewhere that they really would love to go, with a neat note from Mom saying, "Here's a next stage in your journey of life." But then I would have an experience with them, and we focused on, at that time, going through Passport to Purity was the material that we used from Family Life. And boy, did that create great discussion, because it gave us particularly with our oldest, it was my first time doing that. I didn't grow up in a Christian home, so nor did my wife. And so there was a lot of learning to do on how to talk about, young, kids with body changes and peer pressure and agreement on dating, and what kind of questions do you have, and all these sort of things that are really going through a teenager's mind. And that event typically happened around when they were 13, depended on their maturity level. Each one of the guys was a little different. I think with our oldest, I was a little early. With our second, I was a little late. With the third and fourth, I feel like we got it right at the right time.
Yeah,
so
that's good.
We're blessed in that. So that was really neat. And then we also do my next one, my youngest boy is, welcome to COVID, is doing school from home, right? So I know he's not within earshot, so I can share this, because some of this they don't know about.
Yeah.
So then on the next one, on the Squire weekend, what we do is we go away again, but we don't have really as much of an agenda, because now we have this open dialogue about all those topics I already mentioned. And we found that to be very true. But then what I do is I gather a group of men, and if it was for Mariama, Kristen, my wife, will do that with her, with women together. And we typically have had anywhere from 6 to 11, 12, maybe with one of them. Men come, I have them prepare and be thinking about the concept that, in particular, in 1 Corinthians 13, we see that we put childish ways behind us, and now we're becoming a man. And so that stage is their senior year. So our youngest boy, Mike Jr., is getting ready. We'll be doing this with him fairly soon. I'm not sure how to navigate it with COVID yet, but we'll figure that out.
Yeah.
And at the end of the weekend, I surprise him at a dinner where he doesn't know that these men are going to be there. and they all come prepared to talk to him about things like why I'm proud of you, what I appreciate about you, what are some things that you, the man sharing, wish they had done differently during the season, and what are some things that they would encourage my son to do and pay attention to during this season as well. That's been incredibly valuable. And then I do a knighting ceremony or a manhood ceremony with our boys at this point, because they've all expressed the desire to be married. I'm doing that just before and or with our oldest at his bachelor party. So that's been a pretty special deal, and I'm really thankful to my friend Tony for giving me that input.
Yeah, that's neat. I love that. And I myself took notes, just thinking through some things. With our oldest, when I said she was 13, we kind of did a hybrid of a lot of those things that you mentioned, and almost like all in one, and we'll look to spread it out. But those 5 words we got out of Proverbs 31, we assigned 2 men in my life, and then my wife did women in her life, that we wanted them to write. What did that letter or word mean to them, such as generosity? What did that mean in them, and how would they share that with a 13-year-old girl? And it was so neat. And then we had some of them show up at our house and talk about those words, read the letters, and it was so powerful. Wow. And so we are very grateful we did it. And another reason we're grateful for, Mike, and you mentioned to it, is an open dialogue. There's been this open dialogue that we now have that I don't think we ever would have got. So I'm grateful for that moment. And there's things that happened the night when we had her write those 5 words on a bronze mirror and have it melt, much like in a Bible verse where it talks about in Exodus 38:8, where the women had to hand over their bronze mirrors so that they could be melted. So this idea that, hey, women's beauty is great, but it can't come before God. And these bronze mirrors are melted for the wash basins of the tabernacle. So it's really cool. But when we did that whole ceremony, she probably won't remember everything about that night. But my hope and my prayer is that down the road, maybe at tough times, she'll remember that night. She'll remember that she had an army of men and women around her, that her parents support her. And then most of all, she's a beloved daughter. So in your scenario, with your kids, your boys, that they may not remember every piece of those weekends, but there's this foundational element that they now have going forward when they are having a tough time at school, tough time in career, tough time in marriage, that they'll remember that they were a beloved son, that they were, anointed by you through this process. And that's amazing.
Yeah. And what you just shared there, I mean, I'm trying to figure out this daughter thing. It's going well, but that's a very inspirational and edifying process you had there. It's amazing. And I know that at the end of the day, you described that very well. Not only is there a body of believers around you who are here, cheering for you and alongside you, but you've got a mom and dad who love you, and you've got a God that loves you and endears you as a daughter. And that's a great message. And I know she's going to remember. Our boys, our older guys still speak very highly of even the first event. Yeah. How special that was. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. And really, for any listener listening, and Mike, I know you'd agree with this, is it's never too late.
No.
Where I've done a talk on this numerous times before, and there'll be people in the audience like, I wish I would have done it. No, people still need to hear from their earthly father or mother, how we view them and those affirmations. So it's never too late. And so that's good stuff. Well, yeah, great discussion. Didn't plan on going down that path that long with you, but it was cool. And it's neat to hear you do that. Yeah, very neat. With quarantine changing things up in all of our lives, Mike, what have you added into your life, whether it's perspective, whether it's schedule, that you are keeping?
On the personal level, it's get up and move around.
Yeah.
Being very intentional about scheduling time to get out and walk, even just in the middle of the day, to get up and move, right? Beyond the other things that we've already talked about. The second thing is with the team members and the folks that I'm working with, anybody actually, I'm prayerfully getting more engaged in the opening of conversations and checking in on people. So if I have a a 45-minute meeting with someone, for instance, I might spend the first 15 minutes checking in on them and their family and seeing how they're doing, just showing a genuine interest in what's going on with them and checking in, because a lot of folks are feeling very, very isolated during this season. Even if you've got family at home, you know, we're not in our regular routine. We don't do our regular things. And so that piece of it kind of goes along with what we talked about earlier, meeting people right where they are. So where are they? Do we know?
Right.
Don't just jump. Don't just. And and I typically don't do this anyway, but I'm especially cognizant of not jumping in too fast into the purpose and outcome and agenda for the meeting that we're getting into. But also, hey, how are you? How are your how's your family or important people in your life doing?
Yeah, that's good. Relationships before results.
Absolutely.
You definitely are a great example of doing that. It's cool. What are you most excited about in the next 30 days?
Time with family over the holidays. You'd think that, with COVID, you've got enough of it, but we do have one guy still away at college. Everybody else is doing school remote, in home virtually, but having everybody home at once will be great. It would be, I'm disappointed that we can't do, Thanksgiving with everyone, but I also think it'll be sort of a special deal to just be us as well. We're excited to get that opportunity to get, special time with family over the holiday. That for me is the thing I'm most looking forward to.
Yeah, that's cool. What are you reading right now?
So other than the Bible,
that's right.
Yeah. I've got three things going on right now. Finishing up Visioneering by Andy Stanley. Really have enjoyed that book.
Yes.
And then reading again, What is the Gospel by Greg Gilbert. Short little book, just a reminder on what is the gospel. And that's sort of what I'm picking up just here and there. And from a work perspective, I'm rereading a book called Traction by Gino Wickman.
I love the Traction and all the EOS and just that whole idea and how it really helps small businesses a lot, and just thinking through. So being COO, are you more the implementer versus the visionary?
I'm definitely an implementer by nature. Yes. I like to get things done. Yeah.
That's good.
But from a visionary perspective, I'm there too. And that's the blessing of having a great team, right? We've got great folks running operations on a daily basis, VP of operations. And then I've got a really neat creative guy I get to work alongside who is a director of strategic initiatives, a VP of strategic initiatives, who's a very creative guy who loves to implement. So, but I'm a little bit of a blend of two, but in the actual role itself, I'm making sure the business is running.
Someone's got to do it, right? No, that's good.
That's
we use a lot of kind of Traction. There's some other things similar to that as we work with clients and help them get strategic, because so many people are in the business all the time, never actually working kind of on the business and thinking, well, what are those rocks down the road and all those long-term plans.
Right.
So that's great.
Right. Yep.
Well, thank you very much for your time. I would love to continue talking, but I know you've got a business to run. So what are the best way for people to get a hold of you, Mike?
Well, they can easily reach out to me. Email is very simple. It's just mike.hopkins@pauldavis.com. I get mike.hopkins@pauldavis.com. You can find me on LinkedIn as well. That's a great way. And then we can connect by phone from there. Message a little bit and we'll get connected. Be happy to connect with anyone who's interested.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom today, Mike.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it, Corey.
I want to thank you for listening to my podcast, Win at Home First. I am so grateful to hear from listeners like you that this content has been helpful. So now I would love for you to pay it forward. I want to get this message in the hands of more listeners. We need leaders to be winning both at home and at work, especially during this time. So please take a minute to share this episode with somebody you think would find value in it, as well as rate and subscribe. As a thank you, please visit my website at coreymcarlson.com to download a free resource that people are finding value in. Thank you very much.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.